So hello everyone, my name is Martin Chera. My company is Express Capital Financing. We are hard money lenders and non-bank permanent lenders for the 30-year fixed. And with us today is also Keith Tremmel. He is from District Home Buyers. He is a wholesaler that does many deals. He specializes in wholesale deals in Monmouth County, Mercer, and Ocean County, New Jersey. We're going to be doing like a Q&A, asking some questions, getting some advice, thoughts, and suggestions from him. As always, please seek out your counsel, your attorney, your tax advisor. This is just information for you to, like I said, to gain insight, best practices, and thoughts on how to create or continue massive wealth in real estate. So with that said, I'm just going to share my screen for 1 minute and just tell everybody what we do here at Express Capital Financing. So what we do is everybody, you can see my screen, right, Keith?
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. Okay. So what we do is on the left side is rental 360. That's 30-year perm on a single family up to 4 units, 75,000 minimum with the 5 million cap. Interest rates right now are in the 7%. This is a light doc under an entity. The positive things about it, it's called debt service. No income verification, no tax returns, no W-2s. We can go up to 80% of the purchase, 75% on a refi, minimum credit score 650. And yes, we could do Airbnbs as well. All the way on the right side, I'm just going to skip in a minute. On the right side is our everyday fix and flips. 75,000 minimum. There is no cap on the maximum. Typically, this is 1 to 4s. Interest rates now are 10%. It's an annual rate. So if you kept the loan out for 6 months, you only paid 5%. It's an annual rate with no prepay, giving borrowers up to 90% of the purchase, 100% of the rehab. 12 to 24 months is typically the term of the loan. We're not credit sensitive, even though it says 650. We could work with borrowers in the low sixes, high fives. So don't worry about your credit. We can mix anybody's credit, anybody's experience, and anybody's money to give them that high leverage. To the right is our bridge, which is the multifamily and mixed use only. It is the bridge, hard money. Loan amount 250 up to 10 million. This is 5 doors up to 100 doors. So 5 doors up to 100. The loan amount must be 250 up to 10 million. Again, the interest rates are interest only, no prepayment penalty. 10% is an annual rate, 650 minimum score, and we can give you up to 100% of the rehab and 75% of the purchase. So unlike an everyday fix and flip that borrowers get 90 of the purchase and 100 of the rehab, on multifamily and mixed use, it's capped at 75% of the purchase and 100% of the rehab. The last product is our everyday permanent 30-year commercial properties, mixed use, multifamily, industrial, retail, self-storage, even auto industries and warehouse. We could do all that under our 30-year perm, up to 80% leverage. Rates right now starting at 875, 100,000 up to $15 million. We are direct lenders, and that's what we specialize in. If anybody wants to take a picture of this, this is our contact information, our mailing address. My name is Martin. I happen to be the owner and president. We've been around for 13 years, specializing in hard money and 30-year perm. And I'm happy to say we're number 3 on Forbes magazine for the lender with the most products and quick time to close. Most products and quick time to close. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. So welcome, Keith. How are you doing?
Great, man. Great. I'm excited to be.
Good to hear that. So me and Keith are both in South Jersey. He's in Monmouth County, and so am I. And just to reiterate, he's from his company is District Home Buyers. He's a wholesaler that specializes in ocean properties that are wholesale, Ocean, Monmouth, and Mercer counties. For the folks out there that don't know what a wholesaler is, instead of being a realtor license where you're actually selling the property, a wholesaler is obtaining the property through a seller somehow, some way, which he'll tell you his ideas in a few moments, but he's just transferring over the contract. He's contracted and he's in a contract with the seller, and then hopefully he's going to contract it to you to buy it as the end buyer. That's what a wholesaler is. So he may not have a license, an MLS license to do any legality of being a realtor, but it's great to have become a realtor also, which he'll go over. But that's what a wholesaler is. He's just bypassing becoming a realtor, not having to go through the course and the training and paying all those fees, and things like that. So just want to maybe introduce yourself a little bit, and if something that you want to bring out to the audience, and then we'll do like a nice Q&A.
Yeah, so my name's Keith Tremmel. I've been primarily wholesaling in the New Jersey market for the past 5 years. Started in 2019, closed my first deal in 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. Our main marketing strategy is cold calling. First with me doing it, and then hiring one or several virtual assistants or acquisition managers. My partner and I started out, we were 23 years old. We weathered the market storms, including a pandemic, interest rate hikes, a war. Last year, we wholesaled 20 properties. That was our best year thus far. So I wanted to share my knowledge and experience with everyone, and also hopefully inspire some people to take action, get their first deal or maybe their 50th, and in turn, hopefully change their lives. So I thought a great place to start would be sharing my experience working with real estate agents to wholesale houses, usually by leveraging their cash buyers list. So everything I talk about is just through my own experience. And full disclosure, in my real estate career, done over 60 deals, probably over half of them had agents involved. So it's worked very well for me. And I've been able to build a lot of relationships too. So
Beautiful,
it's
beautiful.
amazing.
And for the folks on here in the webinar, if you don't have the capital and you want to go into real estate, wholesaling is your best option first. Lack of capital is fine. Wholesaling will make it 10, 20, 30, $40,000 in the beginning, and you should accumulate, on your first two or three or four deals, accumulate that money, and then you'll graduate to a flip, and then you'll go to more flips, and then you'll hopefully have a portfolio of rental property. So it's a process. And like Keith said, you have to start, you have to take action, because as a lender, I get so many calls, uncertainty in the market, the war, people are afraid the rates are going to go up. People are just afraid, afraid, afraid. But with uncertainty creates opportunity. Somebody that doesn't want to touch something, such as a property, for whatever reason, that's a great opportunity for us. And when people are afraid, guess what? It's even more better because there's less bidders. There's less, there may be less inventory, but now there's less competition. Keith, I tell my borrowers every time when the rates go down in about 2 years, 3 years, what do you think? That the property values are not going to go up? The prices are not going to go up? It's going to be worse than a bidding war now, because now you're going to have home affordability back on, and then you're going to have investors coming on, and then you're going to have Wall Street people coming back in. So uncertainty brings opportunity. It's always there. Spend time in real estate. Don't time the real estate market. But that's awesome to hear that you did 20 properties in 2023. So I just want to, start out with, like, how would you, you said that in 2020 you started out with COVID. Did you work with realtors? Did you not work with realtors? Nobody was touching, nobody was meeting anybody. That was a very challenging time. So how'd you start the process in that most challenging time?
Yeah, so actually at that point we had gotten a few deals under contract, but we're not able to actually sell them. So we ended up, it was literally around March before everything had shut down. We had gotten a property under contract. It's actually in Roosevelt, New Jersey, which is a pretty nice area of Monmouth County near Millstone. And we had been emailing the deal out to several different people in just the old school way, making phone calls to real estate agents. And we came across a real estate agent who said he had interested buyers who would be interested in the property. He came down, he took a look at it, he shook our hands, and he said, well, I'll take it. And just off of him looking at the property, he had buyers that he could trust that were willing to buy it just off him going there. And
Wow.
then there were challenges with the whole world shutting down. And, he was getting a hard money loan. And then uh, everything changed. I mean, they had given him one set of terms, and now we're moving into a whole new world where the whole world's shut down. So push comes to shove, he ended up just closing with his own money. And he ended up closing the deal as chaos was ensuing in the world. And a lot of ups and downs, but we survived it. And going back to what you were saying, wholesaling is the gateway to get into real estate with little to no money. And that's why I recommend and I suggest everybody the way I started with cold calling, just picking up the phone, talking to sellers. And that's what we do. In wholesaling, it's just off market deals. We don't go on the MLS and we look at what's for sale. We go directly to the seller, off market. We cut out everybody else. It's us directly to the seller.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. And one of the things about I want to bring out in real estate, deals are not found, they're created. Whether a seller wants to get out quicker, whether they want to move to a different state, maybe they need your help moving them, maybe they want you to take the house as is with the furniture and the garbage. You have to find that creativeness, and that's when a deal is struck. It's not about, yes, it's all about the numbers, but it's created. It's I always say find out the pain points from the seller, and that's where you can create that urgency, help them out because you are a conduit to helping them out and making everything happen. Would you agree?
Absolutely. In that first deal, the seller lived all the way in Seattle and he has this property. The tenant just moved out. So he's got this vacant house that's sitting there. He doesn't want to deal with it. He's like 3,000 miles away. And I had just happened to cold call him and he was interested in selling it. He told me, hey, there's a key under the mat. Go check the place out. When I went to the house, one of the rooms, I guess there was damage to the roof and the ceiling had like collapsed. It was leaking really badly and nobody had been there for weeks. So we told him about that. That was just even more added fuel to the fire of him just saying, I want to get rid of this place. And we ended up closing the deal. So that one actually was really special to me. But yeah, that's kind of it's a reoccurring theme, like out of state owner, tired landlord, doesn't want to be a landlord anymore, doesn't want to fix the property up. They're far away, they don't care about it anymore. These are kind of the people that I deal with the most.
Right, right. What is your typical average profit? Is there an average in between?
Absolutely. So this is the name of the game here. You know what I mean? Last year, our average deal size was 15,000. So not bad, right? You do the math, 20 deals or so. But if that's what we're trying to do this year is getting that number up closer to 25, 30,000. And we've already done that so far in the first and second quarter here. So that is the name of the game because you close 20 deals at, let's say, 15,000. That's one number, but you close 20 deals at 30,000. That's, twice as much. And you're doing basically the same amount of work. So that is basically the key that we're always trying to do, getting the properties cheaper and selling them for more. It sounds
Right,
very
right.
simple, but there's a lot of
It's
steps in between.
I do. I want to add to that because a few years ago, one of my clients, he was doing his first wholesale deal. We can't lend on wholesale because there is no lending. You're just again transacting from the buyer to the seller. But he was going to make like, I don't know, let's say 20 grand. And at the end of the day, he was going to make like 10. And I said, it's your first deal. Isn't it better to make 10 than to make nothing? And at the same time, that $10,000 is teaching you how to construct your second deal and onward. And this way, your fourth or fifth deal, you'll be making that 25, $30,000. I'm always of the how do I say it, of the experience where 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing, and especially when you're first starting out. So in 2023, did about 20 deals, 15,000 per deal. So you made a nice 300,000 plus income just doing wholesale. But I heard you say that you're cold calling. So tell us, like, how did you find these off market places, these distressed properties? Are you buying a list? Where exactly are you buying it from? And if you don't mind, maybe even sharing the pitch, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do buy lists. We use PropStream, software company. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of them. There is a monthly subscription, $100 a month, plus you have to pay for the data. You got to pull the list. You got to skip trace the list. That costs money. We put it into an auto dialer so we can dial several people at once. That also costs money as well, but it's worth it, right? Because I used to sit there and just type in the phone numbers and listen to the phone ring and listen to the voicemails, and it's literally just one of the worst things you could ever do. But you plug that list into a dialer and it's just calling, calling, calling. and you're talking to people and you're really optimizing your time. And once I get somebody on the phone, I like to start the call off just by saying, obviously introducing myself. And the key is here, you have to be quick because you got to think, right? Marty, you get a phone call from a random phone number. You're, just sitting down, you got home from work, you're trying to eat dinner with your family or something. You're thinking like, who is this? Is this like, a family member of mine? Does somebody need something? Is this an ex-girlfriend? Like there's a level of anxiety when you get a phone call from a number you don't know. So you answer it. You want to know who's calling. You want to know what they want. You want to know what this is about, right? Especially if I'm going to call you and ask you about a property you own, because from your point of view, you're saying, huh, this person knows my phone number. They know my name. They know my property address. Like, what is this? This is kind of creepy. So you have basically a 5 to 10 second window to explain to people who you are, what you want, and why you're calling, and basically drop their anxiety levels. So I like to come out and just be very direct to the point, say, hi, my name's Keith. I was calling about a property I was interested in, 123 Main Street. Just want to see if you're interested in selling the property. That was what, like 7 seconds? So I click quickly, just get to the point, who I am, why I'm calling, about this property. Are you interested? Yes or no? And 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say no, which is fine. That's why you got to be quick. Get right on to the next call and try
Right.
to get one no closer to a yes.
I heard you say a quick dialer. So is that like dialing until you get somebody on the phone? So you're actually speaking to somebody while the system is calling the other numbers?
No, so when somebody answers, it stops. But until somebody answers, it's just
Mm,
automatically calling more and more people. Three people at once are all getting called. Whoever answers first,
uh,
you'll connect with, but you don't have to type in the phone numbers. You're not listening to ring, 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 or voicemails. It skips through all that. So you save so much time, so much headache. Um, it's basically a built-in CRM. Once somebody
mm.
answers, you can take notes right from there. We can build it out so we have like the street view. We could see the Zillow link. It's pretty cool what you could do with a dialer. So I recommend if anybody can afford it when you're starting out, picking up the phones, get a dialer. Um, doesn't really matter which one. There's several of them. We've used them all: Mojo dialer, smartphone, batch dialer. Just pick one, make the calls, and it'll work out.
So your process is you're not leaving any voice messages.
We do. So that's what's cool about the dialer is you can actually have recorded voicemail messages where all you do is press one button and it sends a voicemail recording to the seller. So they'll pick that up. So one press of a button and you're sending a recorded message. Hey, it's Keith. Was calling about one of your properties. Give me a call back.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. So some of my investors, just to share some insight and best practices, will just add to that pitch. I'm Keith, I'm a cash investor, and I can close in a matter of a week, whether you have this property on Main Street or any of the properties that you want to sell, give me a call back. Just wanted to add to a little bit of the script if you just to add some insight. But Keith, how are you filtering it in on PropStream or, GEO data? I just want to add, by the way, I'm sorry. There are other websites like he's mentioning, PopStream, GEO data. Do you know any other websites that I know? Deal Machine. I don't know if you heard of them. These are websites that you could do the skip trace, get the list sorted out. You could even do a mailer. So there's a lot of things that these websites could do for you. But are there any other websites that you could offer to the attendees on this webinar?
Yeah, we use PropStream. There's ListSource.
List
There's
source.
PropWire is a new one. Apparently, you could pull data there for free. So check that one out. But at the end of the day, it's all the same. They're all getting it from the same place. So it's kind of the same thing with the dialer. Like you don't need to hyper focus too much on like which dialer do I get, or which list do I pull, or what company. Just pull a list, get a dialer, and start taking action. That's the key.
Exactly, exactly. And what should people like now? They're going to go on PopStream, Geo Data, or ListSource. How are they filtering it? Besides their city, their state, their property type, even the purchase price that they're looking out for. Like, tell them what type of distressed properties are there for them to find on this to make this list, good for them.
Yeah, there's so many. So first of all, to wholesale or just to buy any property in general, the seller needs to have equity. So a lot of the times you want to filter out, you want lists of people who have owned their property for at least 5 years. It's safe to say if you bought a property in 2019, you've got some equity right about now. But you can filter it by so many different ways. Um, you can filter it by tax liens, so they haven't paid their taxes. That you can filter it by pre-foreclosure, whether they were ever previously in pre-foreclosure or it's something that's active now. Uh, you can also filter it by, I said liens, I said pre-foreclosure. You can filter it by probate. So if somebody has passed away, these are all the basically average list types that people go after.
Got it. And I just want to again, emphasize you should filter your city, your state, the property type that you want, whether it's a two family, three family, single family. And if you're just starting out as a wholesaler, I wouldn't look at 5+ doors. Don't look for a mixed use, a 100 door property, $3 million. I know you may get excited, but you gotta start small, take baby steps, graduate, and then eventually you'll get that money in your bank where you could become a flipper. That's the goal. Do these websites also have filters for expired listings and vacant
Yep,
listings?
that's a
Beautiful,
big one for us too. We do
beautiful,
that a lot.
beautiful.
And vacant. I'm sorry, that's a huge one. Is vacant properties. For wholesaling, it's so much better for doing showings. It makes it a lot easier. And then also absentee owner. Basically, you can filter it by anybody who just doesn't live at the property, meaning the owner has a different mailing address. So because I found that the owner occupants are a little bit harder because they live in the property, they have like an attachment to it, sentimental value. So I've had a lot more success with absentee owners or vacant properties. And you can filter by land. We've done land deals too, and
Hmm.
those sellers get less calls because there's not as many people do
Not too
land.
much competition in that. Yep, not too much competition.
Yes.
And by the way, if you do acquire, whether it's a contract or actually acquiring a property, and there is land next door, whether it's the same seller or a different seller, it would behoove you to acquire it because eventually the owner of the property would want to either expand, and if not, it's still advantageous because you have something you have two pieces of property on the same street and right next door to each other. A friend of mine in Brooklyn, New York, he once bought a 40 by 100 lot, built his house, but he was smart enough. He bought the other 20 foot, thinking he would have his kids one day, build a house there. But 20 years later, he ended up demolishing his house. He was so rich and made his house 60 by 100. So it's a smart idea to acquire the land or the house next door to wherever you acquire. So we gave them the websites, we gave them how to filter it, and now you have a system to either kind of cold call, leave messages, and if you're speaking on the phone, the pitch, whether it's 5 seconds, 10 seconds, the most important thing is you want to make it short, sweet, and right to the point. Like Keith said, my name is Keith. I'm a wholesaler or I'm a real estate investor. I'm a cash investor, and I see you got a property here and there on Main Street. Are you looking to sell it at all? And by the way, if not, why don't you keep my number for any time in the future that you may be open to selling this or any other property? That's something that I like to add also. So I know that you had a lot of success that you mentioned before with realtors, because the realtor was actually your helping you sell your properties. I mean, am I correct?
Yeah, so
Right.
we leverage realtors, we leverage their cash buyers list. That's what I've had a lot of success with. The deal I talked about, my first deal, it was a real estate agent that came and sold the deal, and he actually sold it for what at the time was more than most other people were willing to pay. So real estate agents do have buyers that are willing to pay a little bit more as well, especially if they've been getting beat up, making offers on the MLS, haven't been getting accepted, been getting beat out by people waiving inspections and crazy stuff like that. So
Awesome. Are you negotiating anything special, or are they bringing you the buyer where you don't have to do anything, or are you negotiating their fees, their commissions at all? Just give some insight of what you do.
Yeah, of course. So it's different on any deal, but typically if it's an off-market deal, it doesn't work with like a commission. Because you got to think most of the time they're used to getting a commission 2.5, 3% of the purchase price or something like that. So you just have to keep that stuff in mind when you work out how they're going to get paid. It's off market, so they're basically acting as an investor, not an agent in this transaction. A lot of the times, like with the guy that I work with, where I've now done dozens of deals with him, we actually pay him as like a JV partner, and we do like a profit split, which it's honestly worth it because they bring a lot to the table. And in a situation like that, he's responsible for speaking to the buyer and coordinating the transaction. So we're not even really talking to the buyer. He's got the relationship with him. He's talking to him. If he needs to do anything, the agent tells him. So it's well worth it, whatever you pay him, even if you do pay him 2.5%, it's worth it. You pay him 3,000 bucks. If you're making 20 grand on a deal, it's well worth it.
So wait a minute, the realtor, let's say the purchase price is 200, he's not making his 2.5% of 200,000?
Nope, he could make more. It's whatever you and him agree upon. But you got to
Right,
think on a typical deal, 2.5% of 100,000, he's going to make 2,500 bucks, right?
right,
So anything less than that, he's not going to really be interested.
right.
But you have the ability, you have the freedom of saying, "Huh, we have 20 grand to play around with. Huh, we'll give you 4 grand. Would you be happy with that? Even 5 grand?" They're like, "Oh, that's a double commission. That's like two deals for me." And even as you get closer with them and depending how experienced and what they bring to the table, like I said, you could pay them, treat them as a JV partner and do a profit split. I mean, it's worth it for the good ones. And in some cases, the buyer will just take care of the agent. Like if they have a really good relationship, whether they'll pay them out separate from the wholesale profits. It'll either just be like an actual commission on the HUD or they'll pay it outside of the HUD. So it's so many different things happen, but you always
Yeah.
take care of agents at the end of the day.
Good, good. Yes, yes. Relationships are key in this business. It's not what you know, it's whom you know. But I like what you said because if I mentioned before, it's all about creativeness. So what you're saying is a realtor may not do a small transaction and bring the buyer for his 2 or 3% to make 2 or 3 thousand. So you're doing is you're sharing in your profits, but giving him something because he's bringing the buyers, taking care of all the negotiations, and I like that. Again, 50% of something, 70% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So, I applaud you on that one. That's a good idea. I never thought of that one. Are there any disadvantages of using, by the way, are you a realtor?
No,
No? Are there any disadvantages of using a realtor as a wholesaler that you can convey to this crowd?
the only disadvantage is honestly that you got to pay them. Because if you just compare it to finding your own buyer, now you're making a full 20 grand and you don't have to pay them out, let's say 4 or 5. But it's worth it to me. I've haven't really had too many bad experiences because you do a couple deals with them, you get a relationship, you know what to expect. Um, are there times where deals go bad? Sure, but that's just like with anything. So I really can't think of too many negatives, uh, especially compared to, wholesalers work together as JV partners. But if you do a JV deal with another wholesaler, they're not barred to any rules and regulations like a realtor. Like realtors have to keep their act together because, they have a broker. They're part of the Realtors Association, so they can't screw around. They have to play by the rules. So it usually works out.
Yep, yep. But you touched on a point that I want to bring that up a minute. Hmm, got it.
A good conversation, huh?
No, it was. You guys had a good point that I wanted to touch on that. I can't think what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. Uh, oh man, it killed me. All right. Anyway, what strategies do you use to find good realtors? And there are a dime a dozen. Um, you know, like what strategies you use to find good realtors? And just to emphasize again, what Keith was saying is, and I just want, I'm sorry, that's what I now I remember what I wanted to say. If you're new, or if you're just starting out at your second flip or second wholesale deal, it's okay to make mistakes. From failure comes success. So better you make a lot more failures now because eventually you'll have that success. Before I became a lender, the first 5 years, I was a loan broker. I learned everything there was. I made plenty of mistakes. And then finally I became, I got to be a lender. And even with the lending, I made plenty of mistakes until, I have it down pat. As a wholesaler, as a flipper, as a real estate investor, whatever type of business we're in, it's okay to make mistakes. Whether you pick the wrong agent, you pick the wrong contractor, the wrong buyer, it's okay. Learn from it, and that's the most best experience you could ever get in your lifetime. Because I once was going to take a friend of mine was going to take a franchise on 42nd Street, Manhattan, back in the 1990s. I forgot the name of the company. It was a hot franchise, and the franchise, like, he wanted guaranteed success. He wanted a guaranteed income, and the franchise owner told him, as I was at the meeting, and he said, even though it's on 42nd Street, prime location in Manhattan in the 1990s, it means nothing unless you do your job by opening the gate, taking care of your customers, having the product in the store, getting repeat customers, and making sure that you have happy customers and a happy staff. So it's a process. It's a process. This industry, like anything else, is a process. You may not want to go the path of a realtor, but think about it. Now you got to find properties, and then you got to find buyers. So it depends what path you want to take. And sometimes it's okay to take on a realtor. Sometimes it's okay to do it yourself, or just find your own buyer. And I want to touch on that because how do you find realtors? How do you find buyers? If you want to convey what your thoughts are, and then I'll share some of my own insights.
Yeah, so as far as finding realtors, the easiest and cheapest energy free way to do that is by leveraging social media. So make a Facebook post, get in these Facebook groups where all the local investors are, these RIA groups. Make a post. Who's the best agent in Ocean County for cash transactions? Who works with investors and cash buyers? I'm sure you'll get plenty of people tagging who they think the best agent is. You're going to get a boatload of agents in your inbox willing to work with you. Like, there's a lot of them out there. And at the end of the day, you want to find someone with a good reputation, somebody who everyone's recommending, someone with credibility in the community. Like, they're going to get tagged. A lot of times, if you make a post, who's the best real estate agent? Who's the best lender? Who's the best this? The best ones are going to get tagged because people support them and have used them before. So that's the easiest way. I've met so many people and real estate agents and buyers through Facebook. So that goes for buyers as well. Just make a same post. Who's buying in so-and-so county? Uh, I have a deal, or I'm working on a deal, right? And you're going to get some buyers. Some of them might not be the best. Some of them might be wholesalers in disguise, but you got to vet them out, right? So that's one way. Another way is, like we talked about, Marty, pulling lists with PropStream. You can pull a list of cash buyers. It's really
You
cool.
know that.
What you can also do is you can pull a list of cash sales. So this is a really slick way to find the agents that we're looking for, right? Because if we pull a list of cash sales, PropStream gives you that MLS data. So PropStream will tell you who the agent was that represented that cash buyer. So then and their info is public. So we can call that agent and say, hey, I saw that you represented a cash buyer on so-and-so property. I just wanted to see if maybe we could work together. I do come across properties just like this. And we'll get into the pitch of how to talk to them as well. But that's another very simple way to just find agents who have legitimate cash buyers that they're already doing business with.
That's awesome.
Also, RIA meetings, just like how me and you met, right?
Right,
So
right.
that we got to vouch for RIA meetings right there, or else we wouldn't be here. There's already agents that are there. They want to be there and they want to network with you. So they're there for a reason. I always have found that you build better relationships when you meet someone in person. And then you guys can talk about how to exchange value, which we'll get into that. There's so many different ways. And just to throw one more out there, you can look at obviously active listings on the MLS. You can call these people, the agents, and ask them, hey, have you gotten any offers on this? You can make offers on market deals. I prefer not to because there's just so much competition. But talk to the agents. Ask them, do you have any other deals that you're working on? Start to build that relationship with them so we could potentially work closer, build that trust, and have them sending us pocket listings, off market deals. So
You mentioned pocket listings. Let's talk about that for a second. Pocket listings means off market, and then off market means what? Explain to the group here.
So a lot of times agents will have sellers that they're working with where it's not actually listed on the market yet. Maybe the seller is not ready to sign the listing agreement at that time. And if they're close with you, if they trust you, they a lot of times they'll want to tell their sellers, hey, I actually know a couple cash buyers. If I could find someone to just give you the offer that you want and buy it cash, you don't even have to list it. You won't have to do any of these showings or worry about inspections. It'll be a cash deal. And then the agent looks great because they're solving the seller's problem without even listing it on the MLS. So what I like to do is when I'm talking to these agents, I like to let them know, hey, I'm already going direct to seller and finding off market deals. And a lot of times I come across a lot of these sellers and they just want way too much. Maybe I could send some of these people to you to see if you could do anything with them. Right. And agents would love that. That's free leads for them. And leads are not cheap. So if you're telling them, hey, I have these people, they want retail price, the house doesn't need any work, I'd love to just send them over to you and see what you can do with it. But they would love that and they're going to want to work with you. And you would hope that they would reciprocate. You can ask them about that. Just say, hey, if you have anybody that is looking to sell their property, maybe before you throw it on the MLS, if they just want a cash offer just to see what I can offer, and you say that to enough people, they will send you deals before they hit the market. And now you have a step ahead and an advantage over everybody.
I will say, just to add to what you're saying, so RIA means a real estate investment association.
Yeah.
You can find them on Google, folks. If you go to also a website called Meetup, MEET, meetup.com, you have to put in your city, your state, and your what you're looking for. Are you looking for real estate? Are you looking to meet singles? Are you looking to learn art? But Meetup is good for real estate and to find RIAs. And like I said, Google also. It's consistency. You have to be persistent and constantly go there because if you're looking to build up your business, you got to find buyers, you got to find sellers, you got to find realtors, lenders, and anybody and everybody. But I want to go back to my question before now, just to go back to it is, um, what strategies do you use to find good realtors that specialize in our industry or, in the wholesale industry?
Uh, Basically what we talked about, pulling lists of cash sales, contacting them from there, as well as Facebook, word of mouth. At this point, like once you're kind of around, especially in New Jersey, everybody pretty
No,
much knows everybody. So I like to go a lot off reputation and people that have credibility.
beautiful. Beautiful. And I want to say something over here, Keith. I don't know if you know this guy. I'll just say his first name, Aaron. I don't know if you know him. He was a nice big wholesaler back 10 years ago. Wholesaling, graduated to flipping, and now it's 2024, and he's doing his. I invested with him into his real estate investment firm. I was called a limited partner, an LP, and I invested 100,000 there in a few different deals. The point is, he's now doing a $23 million ground up, and he is what's called the GP, the general partner. He's getting family office money, private lending, and it's amazing how 10 years ago I told him I used to see in the courthouses scrounging over properties to wholesale, and now you're doing these big large deals. It takes time, it takes energy, It takes educating yourself and meeting the people. What would you say about, so two things as a lender, when I hear a wholesaler, we allow it, I don't know, whatever, let's say, I don't know, 20, 30,000 above the actual price. But now a buyer, let's say he's buying the house for you, just to throwing on numbers, 150. Your wholesale fee is 130. So really the retracted price is 120. How would a smart buyer know that it's worth 150? Like, you don't want, my point is, you don't want to overcharge a buyer where you're out of line and you're not getting any buyers, if I'm making
Yeah,
sense.
so the best buyers truly don't care because they are experienced enough and they're confident enough in what they're doing, right? So a lot of times I don't have to oversell the deal or over explain it, especially in a competitive market. If a good deal is a good deal at 150, they shouldn't complain about anything about how much I'm making. They shouldn't be counting my pockets because a lot of times I look back on these deals that I sell and I'm like, damn, I should have bought that. These guys make a killing. And it's basic way they run their numbers. Everybody analyzes deals differently. If it's a fix and flip, what's the ARV? What's the after repair value? If the after repair value is 300,000 and they're going to buy it for 150, put 60, 70 grand into it, they're going to have 70, $80,000 before they got to pay fees and soft costs and all that. So whether we have it for $1,000 and we're assigning it for 100, it really shouldn't matter as long as the numbers line up at the end of the day. Every buyer is going to analyze it different, and it might be worth one number to one person and one number to a different person. But this is the beautiful part about using these agents is they already have the relationships with these buyers. They're doing the negotiating for you. The buyers understand that it's a competitive market. It's a competitive environment out there. If they want to mess around and say, "Oh, I don't think you should be making this much money," you're just going to sell it to the next person. It's that simple. And I mean, we're pretty transparent with our buyers. We'll tell them what we have it under contract for, but some wholesalers won't even want to tell them, and they'll just try to double close it where you can avoid the buyer even finding out how much you're making.
Yeah.
Um, that's up to you, but I recommend being transparent, but it all depends if you have a good relationship with the buyer or not.
So you disclose to your buyers that you're making a certain dollar amount on the contract. You do
Yeah.
disclose that? Is that what you're saying? Got it. Okay. But it doesn't have to be. I just want to clear that up. Everybody doesn't, you don't have to disclose it. He's doing that. That's fine. But how about like when there's two wholesalers? It's double dipping. What is your thoughts on that? Because I don't, you know what I mean? When as a lender, I don't like it because now there's two guys that are kind of well, the second one is gouging off the first one, and then that as is value is not really going to be there anymore.
Yeah, so in that situation, it gets pretty weird, but when we work with other wholesalers, we do a JV split 50-50, and we're going to assign the contract directly to the buyer. Like, we're not going to assign it to the wholesaler who's then going to assign it. And it's like this daisy chain through title. You want to sign a JV agreement with the other wholesaler that you're going to work with that's going to break down the profit split. So if it's $10,000, you're each going to get five. You spell that out. And as a lender, if I send you a JV agreement that spells out exactly where our profit's going, who cares? I right?
No, I agree. But now I have a question for you. You're going into contract on 123 Main Street, let's say for 150, and there's a 10,000 wholesale fee. So you really got it for 140. You're hoping to sell it again, just throwing out numbers for 150. So how is that second wholesaler going to be joint venturing with you when you already have a contract with an entity on there? Are you
So
adding him
that
to the LLC?
no, that it's just stated in the JV agreement. It's written very specifically. It literally says if this buyer buys this property, this buyer was brought by this wholesaler. And if he buys this property, this wholesaler will be entitled to 50% of the profit. We also put in there if he doesn't buy it, then he's not entitled to that profit. So it's like exclusivity to that buyer. And it spells out we're splitting profits 50-50. They're not on the original purchase agreement. Every title company will go through this differently of exactly how they allow you to do it. That's another key thing, is having a good title company for wholesaling that doesn't have too many hoops to jump through with this. But usually a simple JV agreement is enough. Some title companies are a little more strict, and they would want all the people who are getting paid to actually be on the assignment contract. So in wholesaling, you have the purchase agreement with the seller, and then you have an assignment contract with the buyer. So if you have a title company that is a little more strict, then you would need all the profits to be written out on that assignment contract of exactly who's getting paid and what.
Just so let you know, we have a title company called ECF Title, and we don't go that deep into it. So it's a good thing you brought that out. Anything else that you're disclosing to the buyer besides the profits that you're making? And by the way, I find that I'm happy you're doing it, but I never heard of that before, which is commendable. But is there anything else you're disclosing? Anything else, or maybe you shouldn't say, should say? And again, this is all just to the team over here to listen in and gain some insight.
It's common sense things, like if they're gonna go look at the property, um, you tell them not to say anything to the tenant, to the seller, if you're not gonna be there, right? Like you want to keep things private. You want to create two separate email threads with the title company. Like you never want the buyer and the seller in the same email thread. You never want them in the same room. Like you kind of want to just try to play in the middle and make sure that everybody is in their own place, and you don't want them to really intertwine where you could potentially get kicked out, or they just look at each other like, why do we need this guy? So
You must have had some mistakes over there, and you learned your lesson. It sounds like.
yeah,
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
this
and
this
it's
all
it's
happens through trial
yeah,
and error, and I
yeah.
still make mistakes. So
Yeah, listen, and that's why I want to emphasize it's okay. Everything is a learning curve, and behind every success is many, many failures. Um, is there anything that you avoid with your relationships with your realtors as not to ruin the deal flow and the relationship? Is there anything not to say to them?
so what I tell them is it's all a value exchange, right? So I'm going to tell them I'm a real estate investor and a wholesaler, and like you mentioned before, anybody getting into wholesaling, they eventually want to graduate to buying their own deals, um, whatever. So at the end of the day, we are real estate investors. That's not a lie. But you want to be honest about your experience. Like even if you haven't done a deal, you just want to get the point across that you're taking action, and you want to let them know like this is an opportunity for them to work with you. It's not like them doing you a favor because you're new and you need help. Like, hey, this is an opportunity for you. I'm going out there taking action, picking up the phone, calling these off-market sellers, which is real estate agents understand like the value in like off-market deals and leads that the whole world hasn't seen already. So they should understand it's an opportunity for them, and let them know, hey, I'm looking for someone who's experienced in this market. I'm looking for someone that has access to cash buyers. Let them know you run an acquisitions team, a call center, whatever you want to say. If you have virtual assistants making calls for you, let them know. We do a lot of outbound marketing, direct to seller, all off market. I get a lot of leads. Sometimes they're asking way too much. Maybe you could do something with them, and just let them know that you're looking for a specialist in this market, somebody that is very familiar with the market, especially if you're new or even if you're getting into a new market. Just say, hey, I'm not too familiar with this city, and I'm looking for somebody to help me navigate. I'm talking to a lot of sellers. Maybe you could talk to some of them that they want too much, and it's all a value exchange. Like you're gonna bring them leads. You can even have them come on appointments with you. That's something that I've done a lot. I love bringing real estate agents on appointments with me. Why? Because now you have a little bit more credibility with the seller, honestly, especially if you're like me. I was like 23 years old and I looked like I was like 18. I look young. So I was struggling in the beginning with credibility of like, hey, I'm not rich. I don't look like a traditional cash buyer. Uh, I look young. And how can I overcome that? Well, if I bring this 65-year-old real estate agent on an appointment with me who's got 40 years of market knowledge, knows every street in the city like the back of his hand, he knows the rents, he knows the values, I'm going to look a lot better sitting there. And now we can even give the seller two different options. So it's like, hey, we can make you a cash offer or you can list it with him. So we're providing value to the seller and we're trying to solve their problem either way. Sometimes they might want to list it. Sometimes they might want to sell it for cash. It's whatever best fits their situation. At the end of the day, that's what we do. We want to serve the seller, solve their problem, and add value.
I love that. Serve the customer, serve the seller. I love that. Now I have a question for you. Oops. You see me, right?
Yeah, sorry about
Okay.
that.
Okay. Um, question I have. So we didn't talk about this. They get a property on the contract, put it on their own name, an entity. What's the terms? Is it 30 days, 60 days? A lot of questions here, but I'm just trying to get some quick synopsis over here so we could join the crowd and then a few moments.
Sure. So for the first couple deals, you can just put the contract in your name. Like it's fine as long as you're 18 years old. It's not something you need to stress over or get an LLC. I would recommend getting an LLC once you've closed a deal or two and you're consistently like, okay, now I'm serious about this business. It's working out. I'm spending money on marketing. Like you want to be able to have an LLC and have that protection. In the beginning, if you never close the deal, it's not exactly necessary. As far as the contract goes, traditionally a cash deal, like we're telling sellers, like we'll close in 30 days. That's kind of like the quote unquote what a lot of wholesalers are telling people. Um, so 30 days would kind of be the standard, but if you can get more time, better. That's even better. Like the more time, the better, because maybe you have a hard time finding a buyer. Maybe there's problems doing the showings if there's a tenant or just whatever the case may be. But the key is with your wholesale contracts is having your inspection period, inspection slash due diligence period. We call it due diligence, but this is your basically your out clause in the contract where this is your inspection period, your time to figure out if you're going to buy this deal, to call the township, see if there's any open permits, to do a walkthrough with a contractor, to do a tank sweep, to call Marty and see what the rates are and what this deal is going to look like, to do your really run your numbers in your analysis. Um, from the seller's perspective and from your perspective, you're using that time to find a buyer also. But the other stuff's still true. So that's the key, is to have that period, whether that's 14 days. Like I said, the more time, the better. If you get 30-day inspection period, that's great. 30-day inspection, you close 30 days after that, you should have plenty of time to sell that deal. But typically, I would say 14 days inspection period. That's very standard and reasonable. Sellers should be fine with it. And then let's say 21 days to close after that. So that's about, 30, 35 days.
So between the due diligence, the inspector, and you're not doing an appraisal, right?
It depends. If they're getting a hard money loan, then yes, you'll have to do
Well, I'm
that.
saying, but you as a wholesaler, you're just doing you said you're doing a lien. Are you doing a lien search?
So that all comes once we have a buyer.
Oh, so you're not
I'm
doing
just
anything
talking
before that.
about the technicality of the due diligence period, of how you would explain it to the seller if they asked. You would tell them these are all the things that we need to do. Usually takes about 14 days. But in reality, you're using that time to do your showings, showing it to buyers, talking to buyers, sending the deal out. So, but it's also very key because that's how you get out of the contract. If for whatever reason you can't sell it or you got it under contract for too high, um, that's the most important
Is
part of the
there
contract.
is there any
Without,
deposit left with the seller at all or no?
Yes, but we have the buyer put the deposit down.
The buyer, but you got it wholesaled first without the buyer, no?
Yep. Yep. These are the tricks. We're gonna have to get into this on the next
Okay,
one.
okay,
But it's
got it.
all it goes all
Okay.
goes back to your
I
contract.
know where you're going at. I know where you're going at with that one. Okay, got you. Okay. So now I guess we'll have a Q and A if anybody has any questions. I forgot to say that before, but you can put it in the chat or the Q and A as we're ready to end this as it's getting close to 8 o'clock.
Yeah, please ask some questions. I didn't see any in the chat.
See, no chat, no Q and A's. I guess everybody understood. That's a good thing. All right,
I
Keith,
think the
good.
key is one more thing I wanted to add, like with the agents, is we're not just looking for any type of agent. We want agents that understand investing, which large percentage of them don't. And they definitely have to understand wholesaling, because if they're one of those agents that doesn't think wholesaling is legal or something like that, like don't even bother. They have to at least understand that it's a real thing, it's legal, they're not going to get in trouble. Like they have to have done some deals with a wholesaler before. Let me just say that. And but what you really want is the hybrids, the agents that are agents, but they're also wholesalers, and they invest themselves and actually own properties and do deals themselves. Those are the guys, those are the rock stars that you really want.
Right, right. Totally makes sense. So just basically what he's saying just to add to it, you don't want to have an agent that's strictly working with homeowners on 1 to 4s. Am I correct? You want
Yeah,
an agents
exactly.
that have a diversification of homeowners, investors, flippers, diversification in their pool. So we got one Q and A. How can you make commission with the realtor if you have the property under contract?
Yeah, so it's not structured as a commission. It's more structured with them getting paid out as a JV partner. Like they're not acting as a realtor in this transaction. Like there is no quote unquote realtor in the deal. They're basically acting as an investor doing an off market deal. So it's not a commission, it's negotiable, it's whatever you work out with them, and they accept. Like I said, they're usually good with 2.5 to 3% of the purchase price. So if you can give them more than what they would normally make on a commission, then they'd probably be fine with it. It's whatever you can work out with them.
But that 2.5 to 3% is coming from the seller, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But
And sometimes, Keith, sometimes we'll be more creative. If it's not enough juice for the realtor, he'll go into joint venture and the realtor will make on Keith's profit. And notice what he said, profit,
exactly.
because I'm sure there's expenses there. And at the end of the day, it's the profit that they're sharing, not the gross profit, the net profit. So that's
Yeah.
something to consider also. We'll talk about this on the next webinar. We'll announce it on our email blast. We have another question. How do you select the best markets?
So you want to see where the most cash sales are. You can do that on PropStream. You could do that on Zillow. You could do that by just calling a real estate agent and asking them what areas have the most cash transactions. Pretty much just data, see where all the cash buyers are at, and then go find deals there.
Awesome. Next question, is there a way to review the Zoom at a later date? Yes, it'll be on our website. My website is Express Capital Financing. Again, it's expresscapitalfinancing.com. You could look up past seminars or webinars. You'll see it up there. It should be up there probably Monday or Tuesday. And again, my name is Martin Chera from Express Capital Financing. We specialize in hard money, bridge, and also debt service 30-year, whether it's a 1 to 4 or a commercial property. Any other questions before we leave for tonight? Oh, we got another one. Great session, and thanks for sharing. You got it. I appreciate everybody for joining. We will hopefully continue this every 30 days, every month. We'll do this with Keith so we can all share ideas, insight, best practices, and how to obtain massive wealth in real estate. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Keith, about very much for this.
Thank you, everyone.
You got it. Bye-bye.